Hey, good afternoon and good morning, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of Survive in Advance, a Mike Good pastorless edition of Survive in Advance. But the good news is we have Cole Hanna, our intrepid NBA beat reporter, all-around general sports knowledge kind of guy, student at Indiana University, and also covers beat reporting for Indiana University basketball, hopefully Indiana football this year. Cole, welcome aboard today.
Yep, thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. I think you've kind of been indoctrinated for the entire week now. We just recruited you for the entire week. So brush it up, see what you know. As always, we want to start the show by thanking our advertising partners, mybookie.ag, who continues to support the endeavors of the grulingtruth.com. The offer right now, if you go to our website page, you go to the banner, click on the top where the banner is, type in the words TGTGN, the Grueling Truth, TGTN, and what MyBookie AG will do for you is they will match you 100% on the first $300 you invest into an account with them, thus giving you $600 to spend with MyBookie AG on your desires to wager and gamble on event. A lot of great things to follow right now. If you go to the Sheridan Report, another one of our daily shows, Bobby will guide you through some of his strengths, which are baseball and tennis right now. Also, we have the U.S. Open golf coming up next week. And we're in the NBA playoffs, which are always a fun thing, and the NHL playoffs, which are always fun things to bet. So, again, thank you to MyBookie AG for your support. And go ahead and take advantage of that opportunity. Again, it's doubling your money to gamble. If you mean two things, you lose – well, actually, you don't lose twice as much money. You bet twice as much, but you still don't lose twice as much. Or if you win twice as much money, you do that. So all around, it's a good thing. Yeah, right, Cole? And that's why I don't gamble, because I tend to be on that end of losing more times than winning. So, but that being said, we have to get right. Yeah, I've learned a long time ago that somebody's getting rich in Vegas is paying for all those fancy glitzy lights running down the Vegas Strip, and it isn't the hotels. I'm sure they're getting their electric bills covered by guys like me who go in there and don't follow the Sheridan Report and don't look at things and try and think that I'm smart enough to do it on my own when I'm actually not. So I've learned in my life that I'm far too materialistic to gamble. But that's the way it goes.
At least you learned it.
I always need new golf clubs, so because the ones I have don't work. Anyway, some general news to cover. Waiting to hear any more further word on Dan Gilbert, owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who did suffer a stroke earlier in the week. He is awake and alert as far as we know. He is in the intensive care unit at a Cleveland hospital being evaluated and monitored. His family's with him. But, again, said he is awake and alert. They've been pretty hush-hush and guarded on his condition and any updates. Maybe there are no updates. I don't know. Certainly as an owner of the Cavs, he bought the team, I think, in the mid-2000s and has had him in the NBA Championship Series, I think I read, up to 5 times where he's had him there and done well. Brought a championship home to Cleveland. Is the CEO of Quicken Loans, the largest mortgage underwriter in the country. So there's a lot of reasons why I'm sure some of the information is being kept quiet. God's prayers to him and his family and everybody. He's 57 years old. That's young to be suffering a stroke, but it does happen, and we wish him a speedy recovery and a full recovery. On another note, we did get word yesterday that Kevin Durant of the Golden State Warriors is definitely out for Game 1. Is this kind of what we expected, Cole?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned yesterday, just kind of reading based upon the words that was coming out of, Steve Kerr and just the Golden State organization. It didn't sound like he was going to play. So not entirely surprising there, but, it's good news for Golden State in the sense that they also got DeMarcus Cousins upgraded to questionable as well. So he looks like he has a decent chance of playing, and, they've obviously missed him for most of the playoffs, so just another weapon they can add.
Yeah, on the upside of that information, we also got, in the same breath of air from the Warriors propaganda unit, that apparently they have upgraded DeMarcus Cousins to questionable. which leads it to believe that he probably will have some availability, capability going into game one, which, again, we talked about how much bringing Kevin Durant back would strengthen the Warriors bench. Does DeMarcus Cousins in any capacity do the same thing to the Warriors in terms of strengthening their bench?
Yeah, well, again, it's just going to – if he comes back – now that's the guy that they very well may bring off the bench to start out with.
Sure,
I think how much time he's missed. He's been out for a few weeks, yeah. So, obviously, when you're bringing – I mean, when you're talking about bringing a guy like DeMarcus Cousins off the bench who, when he's healthy, is pretty much unanimously looked at as a top 10 player in the NBA, that helps to strengthen a bench that a lot of people thought was the weakness of Golden State. So it's definitely another weapon for them to add. It's a team that already has, more than enough weapons to win an NBA Finals. Now they just keep adding more. Certainly if he's not available for game one, it definitely sounds like we'll see him pretty early in this series. And if they can get Durant back and healthy at some point this series, I think, Golden State's in pretty good position here.
Yeah, you wonder how much of this is propaganda put out by the Warriors to kind of screw around with Toronto's head a little bit, or is this actual news coming out? I mean, I think it's pretty sure that Durant's not going to play. I don't think that they would use him as propaganda fodder. DeMarcus Cousins might be something to all balance the fact that they're not going to have Durant in the first, because Clifton's questionable still means he's probably 50-50. But we'll see how much he wants to play and get into it, and I'm sure we'll get further updates along this between now and Thursday, which is game time, and we'll have more updates on that throughout the course of the weeks and leading into it. We'll see if there is any effectiveness there. I don't think they'd bring him back if he was going to be less than effective. I don't think that they would start him and disrupt their starting lineup, which is coming off a 4-game sweep and playing extremely well together as a unit. I know we've all had questions as to whether Kevin Durant would be disruptive or the positive influence to the Warrior offense. So we'll just take it day by day and see what happens. But that's the latest news out of the NBA camp. And anything else you heard that I've missed? I was scouring the wires this morning, but it's been pretty quiet.
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much touched on everything.
All right, on a side note, and I know we have smarter people to cover this than I do. We have a whole team of hockey experts, but the Boston Bruins did open up the Stanley Cup playoffs last night with a 4-2 victory. Come from behind 4-2 victory over the St. Louis Blues. I believe the game was played at Boston, and I believe at one point in time St. Louis was up 2-0, and then I think that the Bruins rattled off 4 straight goals. And again, we'll let our hockey experts go ahead and divulge on that, because I don't know about you, but I picked up the game of hockey. Primarily because of this network and looking at it, and it's an enjoyable game. I just don't know the rules very well yet and how things work across the board, and you don't know the players. You haven't followed hockey.
Yeah, no, I enjoy. I mean, I like to watch it. I'm not an expert in hockey. I don't know the rules or anything like that, but I mean, obviously, I've had the chance to go to a Blackhawks game here and there, so. Just visiting family in Chicago, but I've never been a huge hockey fan. I've never followed it that well, but it's enjoyable to watch. I'll give it that.
Yeah, it definitely is, and much like the NBA was to me, I was never really a huge fan of the NBA prior to this year, and of course, again, because we were covering so much of it on thegruelingtruth.net, I started watching more and more NBA, and probably the biggest part for me was just getting to know the players that are in the NBA at this point in time. There were so many players, newer players that had transitioned in and out, that my biggest lack of interest in the NBA was I really didn't know the players that were in the league and who were the major contributors to the game itself. Now that I picked that up a lot, actually NBA basketball has been very, very fun to watch. I think that there's been a transitional period developing in the game. I think back in the 80s when the Bird Johnson era was around, you saw the great team play. You saw Showtime, you saw the Celtic Magic, those two whacking off, and then Boston and then Chicago coming in the 90s. But then it's almost like you got into this run of individuals trying to make big contracts and trying to make the big money and do their own thing and bumping from team to team. that seems to have gone away a little bit. When you look at a team like Golden State that has stayed together as long as they have, made 5 straight NBA championships, I mean, that's no small feat in the NBA. It's probably somewhere on the equivalency of what New England does in the NFL. And again, I don't want to catch crap from anybody. I think what the Patriots have done is a true benchmark of a dynasty by spreading it out over the years that they have. But certainly what Golden State has done, and I know we've had this question come up on our show before, in that is Golden State building, or are they now already legitimized themselves as a dynasty? Time will tell. So,
yeah.
On just a quick ad note, we were talking yesterday about Steve Kerr. I looked that up. He played in 3 NBA Finals with the Bulls, 2 NBA Finals with the Spurs, and then he has coached all 5 years coaching in the NBA as a head coach. He has put the team in the NBA Finals. So that's quite a remarkable record for him. 10 years of NBA championships. I don't know that another player, coach, or any combination that has done that. I don't know if they have or not. I would guess some of the Lakers back there when they were trading off between some of the Lakers of the 80s possibly, because I know the Celtics got put out of it a couple of times. I have to research that and look that up. But so that's a great accomplishment there. But I want to get that out there.
Yep.
Let's see here. All right. Now, one of the things that leads to great dynasties is players getting into routines and getting comfortable with their environment and doing things. And we thought we would have some fun today and just throw out there, and that's not necessarily in any particular order, just some of the 10 to 20 greatest superstitions that are in professional sports right now, or even college sports, so to speak. I thought this would be an interesting topic, and there are some of the obvious ones, and now you learn some of the reasons why some of the, we'll call them superstitions, actually occur. And I was able, when we started doing research for this, I picked that up and saw that this was happening, and now I get an understanding of why some of them occurred. Did you find the same thing in looking up what you did?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And I think there's 2 things. There's I looked at myself and I said, did I have any superstitions really when I was playing? And I really can't think of any superstitions as much as I had probably more OCD, than superstitions. It's like I can't get done using something and not put it back where it belongs. It drives me crazy. Like if I pull a pair of scissors out to cut something up and then I lay the scissors down and think, I'll put those away later. It's like, no, I got to put them back right now because the next time I go looking for them, they aren't going to be where I always keep them. And I think that's more OCD than superstition. But I tried to look back on my college playing days, and I thought, was there anything that I thought, if I did not do this, if I did not drive the same route to Assembly Hall, or if I did not wear this color of socks on top of that color of socks, it was going to cause us to lose the game. I never believed in that aspect of it. But as I said, I do believe, when I left my locker room, my stuff was all put away and all done, and my locker was folded up neatly and everything. Towels were put where they needed to be put and everything was done. So when I walked back in, everything looks fresh and looks sharp. So let's focus more on what we think are the superstitions today. And some of the origin of how they came about was interesting. Like I started researching on the first one I'll do here is in NASCAR, what you'll find a couple things. And we couldn't find the answer to this, but in the NASCAR garages, 3 things generally occur. And this is on auto racing in general, the first one. Rarely, if you look, you'll virtually never see a green car in racing. They're very. If you ever take a look at like the Indy 500, they just put 33 cars on the grid, 40 cars on the NASCAR grid. You almost virtually will never see a green car. We don't really know where the origins of that came from. I think that one of them that I read potentially was coming from the fact that the green flag signifies the start of the race, and if you mimic that you're bringing yourself bad luck, thinking you're going to finish the race and everything. Another was a legend that I'd read one time where Jim Clark always drove a green car, ended up dying in a crash in a Formula 1 or Formula 2 race, actually. in England, and at that point in time, drivers stopped driving green cars out of fear that would happen to them. So that's the green car theory. I've known about that one, but I never really knew why. Another one that I did not know about in the NASCAR garages, drivers will go nuts if you have shelled peanuts in the garage.
Really?
And I did not know this. This is something I did not know. But how it came to fruition, what I'm reading about, basically they said that why this became such a no-no was in the earlier days when the cars were not as safe as they are today, many times, guys would put shelled peanuts and chew on them when they were driving. I guess for salt intake. I don't know what their rationale was for doing it, but the peanut shells then became considered bad luck because according to the race lore, peanut shells were always found in the smoldering remains of a badly wrecked car. So the theory then became if you didn't want to wreck your car, you didn't want to get in a wreck or anything like that, you didn't have peanuts in your car. So that was the reason. And there were some notorious people like David Pearson, Dale Earnhardt Sr., guys that would go absolutely nuts if they found shelled peanuts in their garage or anywhere near their cars or anything like that. And that's a lore that I guess continues throughout the course of racing today. I don't know what degree. I mean, heck, Kyle Busch drives the M&M's car, which is chocolate-covered peanuts. But they're not shelled peanuts. That may make the difference there. And the third one I'll talk about just as a general one with NASCAR, and this is another one. A driver, Joe Weatherby, while legend says that there were two $50 bills found in his shirt pocket of Joe Weatherly after he was killed in a crash in 1964. The story was that somebody owed him $100 and paid him just before the race started. He stuck the two 50s in his shirt pocket. When he died in 1964 in a race-related accident, they found the two $50 bills in his shirt pocket. And so since that point in time, since Joe Weatherly's death, you will go into a NASCAR garage, and it is widely speculated and believed that the superstition is that no NASCAR driver will accept or take $50 bills. They will either work with 20s or with 100s. So it's kind of more the genesis of how some of these superstitions start and how they get started. And those are three that, I was not aware of the peanuts in the shell thing. I kind of knew about the $50 bill thing, and I knew about the green race car thing, but I did not know of those. But then I see where they say, they found two $50 bills in his shirt pocket right after somebody handing the money just before he got in the car, drove away, and then died in that race. And all of a sudden that becomes a superstition. You don't ever want to have two $50 bills in your purse, just like you in your pocket, shirt pocket, just like you don't want to have shelled peanut shells in your car after you run it, because they found them on badly wrecked cars where drivers get injured and are killed. So that's kind of the genesis of how some of these things start. So let's just start off. What were some of the ones that you found? Let's start off. What was one that you found that you thought was interesting?
Well, I think I got to start off with probably the most famous one, I think, which is Tiger wearing red on Sunday. I think everyone's probably somewhat familiar with that one. Apparently, the origin story there is just growing up, whenever he would have big events, he would always wear red. The majority of those events happened to fall on Sunday. So it just pretty much developed a habit where eventually it just became, wear red on Sunday with him. Obviously one of the greatest golfers, we've ever seen to come through the game. And obviously, wearing red's become a big thing. A lot of people do it now. It's kind of just mimicking Tiger. It's kind of become a big pop culture thing kind of. So I feel like we got to start off with that one.
Yeah. To add on to that, a couple things. One is one of the things that I think, and I think Mike Goodpaster spoke to this a little bit, and I really wasn't that keenly aware of it, but Nicklaus tended to always wear yellow on Sundays. And there was some thought process that basically, if you go back and look at many of his major wins on the big tournaments, he has yellow on, either a yellow cardigan or a yellow golf shirt on. When he won the Masters in '86, his last major championship, he had a yellow golf shirt on and won with that. And there are several pictures of him holding up the claret jug or the U.S. Open trophy where he has yellow on, either in the form of a sweater or in the form, and it's subconscious. If you go back and punched up a bunch of pictures of him, you'll see it to be true. So there was some speculation that the origin of Tiger's red stemmed from Jack's yellow, that he was in such awe of Jack Nicklaus and wanted to continue to find ways to emulate the success of his career. But that red, as you said, for whatever reason, he chose red. And the interesting thing about that superstition is that, with the exception of really one golfer, if you look at it, really no other golfer wears red on Sundays. I mean, if you really go back, you will find one occasionally that's got red on, but for the most part, it almost becomes a superstition of its own right not to wear red on Sunday, because you'll draw the ire of Tiger or get him upset, and he'll just come and clock you one. But the one golfer who did that was actually a Nike sponsor with his, was Patrick Reed, who many times showed up in black slacks and a red golf shirt and said, "There's no law that says I can't wear this if I didn't want," trying to get into Tiger's head. Of course, Patrick Reed has, 1 or 2 majors, and Tiger has 15, I think, now, and 80-something PGA. So, But, but the interesting thing of the genesis of that, it was the number of golfers that do not put red on Sundays, either out of respect or out of fear of their own superstitions, that it'll bite you if you wear Tiger's colors on Sunday. Now, I think the most times you do see it is a tournament Tiger's not playing in, or he's missed a cut of late or something along those lines. So just a little further genesis on that. What else do you have? You got another one you want to go to, or you want me to go with one?
Yeah, I got another one, which I find it interesting because we think of these athletes as these physical freaks, and they are. But one of the interesting habits I found is from former NBA player Caron Butler, who would go through pregame. He would start to drink a 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew, and then he would finish it off at halftime. And the best part about this is when he played for the Lakers, he had to do it in secret so he could hide it from Kobe Bryant, because he couldn't let Kobe Bryant see him doing this without him freaking out on him about asking him what he's doing. So he had to hide the Mountain Dew bottles from Kobe when he played with the Lakers, which is, I guess he just, I don't know what the backstory is there. He must just be a huge Mountain Dew fan. You would think that would be a bad habit to do before a game. You would think that would not help you at all, but it's something I guess he had to do before every game.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and there's a lot along that lines too. Tying kind of into that theme, have you noticed that? And he's in our era, the superstitious genre and idiotness of Rafa Nadal when he steps on a court. He's got a series of things he does. First off, he only crosses the lines to the court with his right foot, meaning his right foot goes over first. He won't step on any of the cracks. He only tosses with his right foot, or crosses it. He eats his energy bars exactly the same in a certain way, peels them to the exact same place, and sets them down on the exact same place as close as he can. He actually has his staging area set up in a certain way so that he can mimic his superstitions. If you've ever noticed him twirling his water bottles around, he puts all of his water bottles in a line, and he turns them so that all labels are facing the same direction, and does it by order of how each of the bottles are filled. And the final part of his ritual, which becomes a superstition, is whenever the coin toss is being done, he jumps. And again, we're in the throes of the French Open now, so that's the first thing I'm going to be looking for when I see Nadal come out on the court. And the other thing is he only comes out with one tennis racket in his hand. And he always comes out with one, where a lot of times all the players will come out with their rackets all in a bag, or they'll be holding 3 or 4 rackets in their hands and coming out. But Nadal feverishly only comes out with one tennis racket in his hand, will only cross the lines on the tennis court with his right foot, eats the power bar in the exact same fashion. He eats it every time, takes the exact number of bites, eats it down to the exact same spot, aligns his water bottles from fullest to thinnest or to lowest, and has labels all pointing in the exact same direction. And actually you can see him sitting there twisting the bottles around. And he gets frustrated when, like, a ball boy or something will try and grab his water bottles. I've heard him kind of rip into him just a little bit. And then he jumps up when the coin toss is being taken, and he comes out with one racket. So, again, to me, that's probably more superstition than OCD. I don't know, but I would say that's probably the basis of a lot of superstition. and how a lot of it comes to play. What else you got next?
Well, I'm going to go kind of with another well-known one here. I think it's the baseball no-hitter, right, where you're not supposed to talk about it. It's become a big thing. I guess if you talk about it, there's the fear they're going to jinx it, actually. And a lot of the pitchers now, when they're in the middle of a perfect game, late in the game, they'll actually just kind of go sit by themselves. They won't talk to anyone. They won't be near anyone. They'll just kind of be off in the corner by themselves, I guess, because you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to interact with people. You just want to get it over with. So it's definitely something that, even like sometimes announcers have just completely ignored. It's, a perfect game's ongoing, because if you comment on it, you're going to jinx it somehow. So it's become a big thing in baseball where, if a pitcher's in the middle of a perfect game, you don't talk to him about it, don't mention it, and they, for the most part, they just stay away from everyone else. So I think it's interesting. I don't know how that started, but
I'm sure it probably started where somebody came up to a player and a pitcher and said, hey, you got a no-hitter going, man. You got a perfect game. And then the first pitch he threw was ripped over the fence or somewhere like that. And then that became that became don't ever do that again. You just killed this guy's perfect game or no-hitter. And I think that was amplified in the movie. I think it's called For the Love of the Game with Kevin Costner. When
I don't think I've ever
he's playing the character of Billy Chappell, who's throwing he's playing for the Tigers and throws is going to be end up being his last game as a player, and he throws a perfect game against the Yankees. And he kind of goes through the scenario in there, and he talks about he knows they're all trying to avoid him, and he actually goes and sits by himself in order to not put the other players in an off. He said they all have jobs to do. I don't want them focused on me. I'm doing my job. They just need to go do their job. I don't want them and he kind of explains that a little bit. They kind of explain it a little bit in the movie as to how that goes on. But a lot of times now the pitcher just goes off on his own, knowing full well that nobody wants to jinx him. So he kind of takes it out of his own hands. But, that's one that's been around for as long as I can remember following baseball. So, but I'm sure that one started somewhere down the road of somebody going up and saying something to him, and then I go, dude, you got a no-hitter going, boom.
Next pitch, home run or something.
Then we have the famous one of all, probably the most famous, is the coveted Sports Illustrated cover jinx. And I'm sure you're familiar with that. Now, I actually looked that up, and there actually is an entire Wikipedia page
dedicated
to this topic. And when you go on here, I mean, and I go to Wikipedia right here. There are notable contradictions to the curse. Jordan holds the cover record with 50 appearances, none of which was ever hindered by his success. Ali appeared in 40 covers, experienced a typical array of luck in his professional and personal life, but none came right after being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Vince Young also discredited the Sports Illustrated jinx by appearing on the cover of Sports Illustrated twice during Texas National Championship season. Emmitt Smith appeared on the cover. Same week the Dallas Cowboys won a Super Bowl. Tony Dorsett. I mean, there are a lot of players. 2013 Seahawks appeared on the September 2013 cover, in which they predicted the Super Bowl, and they went on to win the Super Bowl that year. I mean, there are a lot. But then you go to the notable incidences, and I mean, they go from 1954, I guess that may be when Sports Illustrated started or something, I'm not sure. But then you go all the way down, and it breaks it down by decades, basically. And I mean, my gosh, there are significant ones. A lot of them involving auto racers being put on the cover, drivers that were put on the cover in the start of May for the Indy 500, and they ended up dying that year in a crash either at the track or in the next race after the track. A lot of those things, a lot of NFL ones. Tony Mandarich, 1981 football player drafted, was on the cover. I think he was depicted as the best offensive line prospect ever, and he ended up being a big bust in the NFL. After the 89 sweep, the Lakers swept the Phoenix Suns in the NBA Conference Finals. They featured the Lakers forward James Worthy with the word sweep in large letters and in small in the caption. Worthy and the Lakers beat the Suns to go 11-0 in the playoffs. The Lakers are going to lose the NBA Finals after that appeared on there to the Detroit Pistons. Were swept by the Pistons 4-0. But you can go to the Sports Illustrated one rather than try and pick any one. If you go to the Wikipedia page, and there actually is an entire Wikipedia page just dedicated to the Jinx, the Sports Illustrated Jinx.
And carrying off that, Steve, have you researched the Madden Jinx at all?
Yeah, and that's another one that was on there. Yeah, the Madden Jinx too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
there are the same thing. Guys get put on the Madden cover, and then they're, that next season, whatever, they either get hurt or something happens. Michael Vick was a big one, gets put on there, and then as a dog thing, Peyton Hillis gets put on there, and his career basically falls apart. And they put Adrian Peterson on there, and he tears his ACL.
Yeah, the Madden Jinx was also another one and they were cited several incidences there of getting your face on the cover of the Madden EA Sports game, and then all of a sudden disaster hitting you. At that point in time. So some are lesser known. Like and I'll give you another one. Brian Urlacher. Something simple as he eats 2 chocolate chip cookies before he goes out every game. And he's done it. When he was a player, he did it every game. But he would always have somebody there with 2 chocolate chip cookies he would eat. That's just a more relevant superstition, kind of like, okay, that's tolerable. That's not going off the deep end. Which, you start talking about airing your dirty laundry. And there's several other than about clothing. We all know, I think, about Michael Jordan in his runs of all his NBA championships. Always played with a pair of his North Carolina gym trunks underneath his Bulls game trunks. You're aware of that, right?
Yeah.
One I did not know, Serena Williams, only when she starts a tournament, aka the French Open, she only plays with 1 pair of socks throughout the entire tournament. I hope she gets them washed.
Bad, man.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if you get them washed, they're still going to smell bad.
Yeah,
yeah. But she only plays with 1. And then there was a former Giants pitcher, Steve Klein. He had the dirty hat tradition in which he would wear the same hat all season without ever washing it. He took pride in the Grody hat and enjoyed seeing it, the new depths of filth. And by the end of the season, but he never watched his hat and never changed hats, wore the entire hat. What was the other one here? Let me see if I can find it. Well, you got one? I'll look this other one up I want to find.
Yeah, well, one of the big ones I saw, and it's in the NHL, and it's pretty much goes on across the NHL, is when your team gets in the playoffs, apparently a lot of guys, kind of an unwritten rule, is you can't shave your beard. Until your team's eliminated from the playoffs. So it's kind of entertaining because you can go on and look at some of the beards that people have, during the NHL playoffs. Some of them aren't very good. It's tough to look at, but, a lot of guys, a big thing in the media now is they'll go through when the NHL playoffs are on, they'll, look at the best beards of the playoffs since no one shaves their beard. And it's just kind of a wacky tradition, I guess, they have the NHL where, if you shave your beard, it's bad luck and you'll get eliminated, I guess. It's somehow how
and that did start in hockey, but, that's like carried on to other sports now. I think Roethlisberger does it. Baseball players do now. Does that constitute a superstition or just like you said, kind of almost that just becomes a team tradition that they do at that point in time? I mean, to me, the superstition was the hockey players that did it because they originated the superstition. And they were the ones who came up with the idea and did it. And then everybody else just started copying that to the point today where most professional sports teams won't shave until they've not completed their mission, either winning the World Series or they'll keep the beards until they're eliminated from any contention or any playoff contention. I read that one as well, but I thought I probably got to throw a bone to the hockey players for developing that one because I think that was their superstition.
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's done with the intent that doing this is going to help you win, I think it should be considered a superstition. But I think a lot of guys have just taken it from hockey. It's just kind of, they saw it in hockey and guys have just mostly copied it. But certainly, it's become the biggest deal in hockey where it's almost done across the league for the most part.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you get into a lot of hygienic ones, a lot of hygiene. and we can cover some of the more famous ones of those. Let me see, where was the one I was looking for? Here, Magical Healing there. So there was the, of course, the one I want to find. This is one here. Turks Wendell. Turks Wendell was a pitcher, kind of a weirdo, and I kind of remember him being kind of a goofball. He always he had a bunch of superstitions. One being that he insisted that numbers in his contracts all ended in 99. So instead of signing for $100,000, it had to be either $100,000.99 or $99,999. But probably the one he's most famous for was his OCD teeth brushing, in the sense that in between innings he would always chew down 4 pieces of black licorice. And and he also would wear a necklace which was made of teeth and other various body parts of animals that he hunted. And he would always draw 3 crosses in the dirt on the mound before pitching. But he would also, the big thing was he would eat 4 pieces of licorice during the games that he pitched and would brush his teeth in the dugout in between innings.
Jeez.
After he would take a flying leap over the baseline. He would not touch the baseline, would jump over that. Then he would eat his 4 pieces of licorice. Then he would go in and vehemently, brush his teeth. And, again, if you could imagine a baseball player in there on the water fountain brushing his teeth and thinking, okay, you kind of need to get out there and pitch again. So I thought that was a good one. Any other hygiene? I got a couple more hygiene ones. Any that you found?
I haven't seen any hygiene ones really. I guess I've seen one that could be considered bad hygiene, which I guess, and we kind of talked about this before, but Cubs outfielder Moses Alou, I believe is how you say the name, would supposedly pee on his hands before games to help with causes. I don't know if that I don't know the science behind that. I guess supposedly it's supposed to harden your skin.
That was his science. That allegedly was his science, that it would harden your hands and make the bat feel tougher or better in your hands. Although science has rebuked that, saying that actually urine will soften your hands up, that it will work as a natural moisturizer or something like that. That it actually works the opposite of what he wanted. Another one that I found was in the 50s, Manny Minoso, who played for the White Sox, had an interesting way of combating hitless games.
Yeah.
Apparently he blamed a bad motion on his uniform and wore it in the post-game shower to wash the stink away of the game. So every time he went hitless, he would go into the locker room with his uniform on and just take a shower with his uniform on.
That's a good one, actually.
His unorthodox shower, the next day out, Mimoso had 3 hits in the next day's game. His teammates were sold on the methods and followed the game, and they all piled in the shower with their uniforms on too. Hey, it's only crazy if it doesn't work, I guess, was the saying that kind of went with that. So apparently for that season or whatever period of time, the superstition was if you go hitless, you shower with your uniform on. And Manny Minoso is credited with starting that superstition and did that. One of the ones that I thought was kind of really weird was Mike Bibby, who actually, apparently this started from chewing on his fingernails due to nervousness during the course of games, but that he then actually took out a pair of nail clippers and began to just use the nail clippers and clip his fingernails in the course of a game. Now, I can imagine a timeout with him sitting there and coach trying to go over the plays to set it up, and here he is, just a minute, coach, I got to get my fingernails trimmed and all ready to go. And then how far down would he take him? How many times would he do it? But another one of those quirky things, it just becomes a superstition where, in order to not bite and if good things were going to happen if he had his fingernails all trimmed and cut down. But Bibby was definitely known to cut his fingernails during the course of a game. Again, a couple of them came up. Michael Jordan with his North Carolina shorts, we talked about that.
North Carolina that's a big one.
Yeah. The other one that came to play was Jason Terry. It was a Celtics guard. He had a superstition dating back to his playing days at Arizona where he actually slept the night before in the game shorts of the opponents they were playing the next day. So, and you can imagine, you think eventually he just would have a pair of game shorts from every team and would put them in his luggage when he went on the road, but apparently he didn't think of that and constantly had uniform managers and running around to the opposing team saying, hey, can we borrow a pair of your shorts? And it got to be a point to where routinely other teams would accommodate him and send him a pair of those shorts. But now, and I don't know if Jason Terry's actually still in the NBA or not, but when this was published, he wears the shorts of his opponents the night before each game and going to bed. And now that's a superstition.
Yeah.
That to me is a superstition. What else you got?
So one of the interesting ones I found is, a lot of different players have different rituals they would take, meals they have to eat and stuff before a game. One of the interesting pregame rituals I found was John Henderson, who was a defensive tackle for the Jacksonville
Cowboys?
Jaguars for most of his career.
Jaguars.
Yeah. And essentially what he would do is every day before a game to prepare to get him, hyped up, excited for the game, he would have the team trainer slap him in the face as hard as he could. I guess it's, he needed to do that to get amped up, to get, I guess just he fits the stereotype of that crazy NFL player, probably not all there in the head, has to get slapped in the face to get ready to go. I thought that was kind of a funny pregame tradition to look at. Yeah,
and there are some superstitions that can go badly wrong. In the case of the Zimbabwean soccer team, in 2008, came up with a less than brilliant plan to cleanse the team of bad spirits of some of the losses prior to their next match. Players were instructed by the coaches to wade into the Zambezi River near Victoria Falls. Now, if you watch Jeopardy enough, you know that Victoria Falls is in the heart of Africa. It's one of the largest waterfalls in the world. It's meaning strong currents and everything going on. And it's also alligator and crocodile, or I guess that would be crocodile in Africa. Yeah, crocodiles are in Africa, alligators are in Asia or in Florida. So it would be crocodiles, but hippos as well, and hippos are often considered the most dangerous animal to man, even more so than a lion, tiger, or bear. Oh, my. But this coach concocted the scheme of having his team wade into the Zambezi River to cleanse and purge themselves as a superstition of all their bad games. Well, 16 players went into the water, and only 15 made it out. So everyone managed to dodge the man-eating wildlife in the area, but one succumbed to the current and drowned. The presumed went over the waterfall. The players later told authorities that they were forced into that ridiculous ritual. Hopefully the next time someone speaks up before they wade into the Zambezi River. But there's a great example of a superstition, like let's go cleanse ourselves in the Zambezi River, forgetting to think about the currents and the animals that occupy that river. And they lost the player. They played with 15 players that year. I thought that was an interesting one.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Again, they can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's a pretty extreme one. And I found another interesting one here. It's another hockey one. And I guess this originated in Detroit, I believe.
Yeah.
So essentially what they would do is during the playoffs, it took 8 wins to get to win the Stanley Cup. So what they would do is the fans would throw a dead octopus onto the rink. I guess with the idea that there's 8 tentacles on the octopus, and each tentacle represents 1 win, which is kind of a bizarre and somewhat creepy thing to do. But I guess someone brought a dead octopus to the game during the playoffs and threw it on the rink in hopes that it would, represent a win and help them win, I guess.
Yeah, that's part of the hat trick, and then the octopus. And the third one, I think it was around the mid-2000s, one of the players killed a rat in the locker room. And he killed the rat, and then that player had an outstanding game. I will have to look that up. But he had an outstanding game and came out. And so that now has become the rat trick, where kind of along the same category. Now, fortunately, they don't throw out live or not live, real dead rats. they basically throw out rubber and plastic rats out on the rinks now too. So you'll periodically see hats, you'll see baseball gloves, baseball gloves. You'll see octopuses, and you'll see rubber rats or plastic rats being thrown out there. But seems these hockey guys, I don't know, these pucks hitting the head, they come up with some of the best superstitions of anybody.
Yeah,
I've noticed the Canadians are at it again. They have the best ones. Then we can talk about the many curses of the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, jeez.
But before they won here recently, it's been 105 years since the Cubbies last won the World Series. The original one was the curse of the Billy Goat. Stems from a local bar owner who was booted out of Wrigley Field during the 45 World Series because people complained about the smell of his companion, a goat. He and the goat left, but not before putting a curse on the team. And, of course, a guy on a date with a goat is also a wizard. But the curse of the Billy Goat, obviously, when he got kicked out, he said, being my Billy Goat curse you. And, of course, the Cubs went on to go, 105-year drought without ever winning a World Series, and they called that the curse of the Billy Goat. The Black Cat, the curse of the Black Cat, locked in a tight division race. The Cubs met in September in '69 for 2 critical games. Early in the game, a black cat mysteriously appeared on the stands at Shea Stadium. From the stands at Shea Stadium and sauntered past Cubs dugout. The Cubs lost the game and later the division, and the Mets ended up winning the World Series. And then I know Ross wasn't even born then, so you wouldn't have been. The curse of Steve Bartman, which you remember he tried to catch the foul ball when the Cubs were up. I think if they make that catch, if they make that catch, they pretty well end that game. I think they're up in the series. They end up losing the game after Bartman made the error. Bartman's been death threats on him forever. They finally just resolved that not too long ago, as I can remember. But they went on to lose pretty much the series and everything, or lose the playoffs and not face it. That was in the NCLAS. And the curse of Bartman carried on forever. And I think finally everything seemed to have gotten put to bed with these curses with the Cubs when they won a few years ago. So there were all kinds of superstitions about goalies, particularly, again, hockey, purposely puking before every game, going in and making sure they threw up every game. That was a pretty rare one. There were some other interesting ones. Stan Mikita, Blackhawks' great pregame ritual was to flick a lit cigarette over his left shoulder before taking the ice each night. It wouldn't fly today, but no one ever blinked back in the 60s. There were a lot of players that smoked and drank. Pele Lindbergh would come in and would have a specific beer, cold beer, waiting for him in between intermissions at his hockey games that he played for the Flyers. And the brand was, let me see, Prips. And he would drink it as if there were 2 ice cubes, no more, no less. And his beer had to be hand-delivered by the same trainer every night. That's a superstition. But, again, those are records that wouldn't be. What else you got?
So one that I found, so pretty much one of the things is, again, this is another, I don't know if you've heard the name Ed Bullfrog before. I believe he was a hockey player, but one of the big things he did, I guess, before the game is he wouldn't let any of his teammates touch his equipment. No one could touch it, his pads, his helmet, his stick. It was only for him. No one could touch it. None of the equipment guys could touch it. It was only him. He was the only guy that could touch it before the game. Essentially, that he would start off every season by talking to his teammates with the quote, "Every season, if you touch my stuff, I'll kill you," was apparently his quote to all of them to start the season. So I thought that was an interesting one, that apparently no one else could touch his stuff just because it gives it bad luck or something to do with that. But
yeah, Gretsky apparently had a similar one where he would, when he was breaking in a new stick, he would tape it heavily, and then he would dump it and soak it in baby powder, of all things. And the theory behind it was that it would disrupt some of the adhesiveness of the tape and let the puck slide off the tape more, and give him better mobilization of the puck with his stick by letting it slide and run the entire blade more. And he also had the same kind of deal where he didn't want his stick touching anybody else's stick, and didn't want anybody else touching his sticks when he was out there. And then that leads to many of these, and I got to go down to the bottom down here. Loyoto Machado, Moises Alou, Sergio Goicoechea, and Barry Fry all had various dealing with urine and as a superstition. Barry Fry, English football manager Barry Fry is a guy who you'd want to call. While managing for Birmingham City, Fry supposedly broke a long-standing gypsy curse on the club by urinating on all four corners of the St. Andrews field. So he went to the four corners and peed. A retired Argentina goalkeeper, I think this is the good one, had a knack for stopping penalty kicks during his career. His secret, he would relieve himself right there on the pitch before every single kick, on a penalty kick. It made him a better goalie, or maybe the sight of the jarring enough to knock the opposition off their game. But he literally would urinate on himself prior to the penalty kick. That's a superstition. Moises Alou, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Who peed on his hands. And there was instances of, and Loyoto Machado was the example they used, but a lot of these soccer players, and these guys are kind of crazy, that would drink their own urine each morning like a natural medicine. Yeah. And I found several of those. So there were several of the drinking your own urine. A couple of them that caught my eye. Where was it? Jason Giambi. Did you read the one about Jason Giambi?
No, I didn't see that one, actually.
He was in the middle of a horrendous batting slump. And basically what he did was, to break his slump, he actually got caught wearing a pair of gold thong underwear out onto the field under his uniform. But it broke his slump, and he hit like a banshee, and the team tried to make him wear the gold thong for the rest of the season and to keep his bat hot. I don't know if that would ever came to fruition or not. It did not say how that ended, but he put on a pair of gold thongs, and it broke his slump, and he went back onto a hot hitting streak. LSU coach Les Miles, one of the more colorful coaches.
Yeah, that was the one I was looking at.
Yeah, eating the grass in the field he was playing on. He actually would pick up chunks of the grass and eat it. Okay, grazing. That would be good.
The bizarre one, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where that one came from. Other ones that came up that I found, there was always one, I don't know if you remember, Jerry Tarkanian sucking on a towel the whole time. He would always had to have a towel in his mouth, sucking on a towel. Now, I did not know this one. Of course, we all know about LeBron James, putting the resin on his hands and then throwing it up in the air. Also, it was also noted that LeBron has a superstition that he has a different handshake with each of the players on his team. And it's a secret handshake that only he and that player know. And he gets the other teammates not to divulge their handshake with him, but that he has a unique individual handshake that he has with all the players on his team. I thought that was interesting.
Well, I've noticed him during games how he does have elaborate handshakes with certain guys during the, when they announce the players and they come through the huddle and all that. But, I didn't know he had one with every single player in the team. That's interesting, actually.
Yeah, I did not know that either. So there's one you found through the whole process. Wade Boggs, a baseball player, apparently was known as the Chicken Man because he ate chicken before every game. He says it stems from the fact that when he first came into baseball, he was dirt poor and all he could really afford was chicken, but that his wife was charged with managing over 100 chicken recipes and cooking over 3,000 chicken dinners or meals a season. He did that, as well as he had a deal. Superstition for Wade Boggs was he took batting practice every day at 5:17 and ran sprints at 7:17 every day. And you didn't mess with him when those things came to fruition. when it was time to go do that. You left him alone, and he went and did his thing. Of course, Wade Boggs went on to become one of the greatest hitters in all time in baseball. Any other ones you got that we? I mean, I think the thing we both learned here is there are endless ones here in terms of what players do. Go ahead.
This is pretty much this one was from 2006 at the World Cup in Germany. So Ecuador qualified for the World Cup, and I guess what they did is they wanted some help to try to advance in the World Cup. So I guess they turned to voodoo magic and hired a guy. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name because I am just going to butcher it completely. Yeah, voodoo. But he's an Ecuadorian mystic who traveled with the team to Germany and would pray at each of the 12 stadiums to dispel the evil spirits that the team felt would try to hamper their success at the World Cup. And, hey, they ended up winning a couple games in the World Cup before, falling out in the second round of the tournament. And for Ecuador, it's pretty good. So, hey, maybe it worked. Who knows?
Yeah. Unlike the Zimbabwean soccer team, should a superstition bring you good luck? I mean, yeah, would you call it a superstition or idiotic if you put 16 guys into the Zambezi River, chock full of crocodiles, and strong currents leading right to Victoria Falls? Maybe that wasn't a good superstition.
Yeah, that one didn't work out too well.
No. One last one I had was the Hall of Fame slugger Richie Ashburn. Had his own way of keeping a hot streak hot. Anytime he was having a particularly good day at the plate, he would be sure to use the same bat for as long as the success would last, and Ashburn went to extraordinary lengths to remain in possession of his lucky bats. Concerned that equipment managers couldn't be trusted to keep his bat separate from all the other bats, Ashburn would literally take his bat of the moment home with him each night, and it actually would make room for it in his bed and would actually sleep with that bat.
Yeah.
When in doubt, treat your bat like a special lady, I guess. But he was known for when he was hitting on a hitting streak, he would literally take his bat home and sleep with it until the bat started to fail him. Well, I think we've gone through. I mean, we could probably sit here for 4 hours and cover all the crazy superstitions athletes have. What's amazing to me is how many athletes, guys who are top-level performers in their games over whatever period of era, rely on superstition, thinks that things happen because of a routine rather than because of your talents. I think that was the big takeaway I had in this. I don't think that putting two $50 bills in your uniform is going to cause you to wreck and get killed in a car wreck, as NASCAR drivers tend to think. But, it's funny how you get in that and you start looking for protection to keep yourself safe and things of that nature. But any last ones that you have are really good because, like I said, we've been at it an hour, and we literally could go on forever. Some of the interesting ones, like finding out how the octopi got to be, because I always wondered, why did they throw octopi out there? Why did they throw octopus on the ice? And now I know because of the 8 tentacles back in that day.
Yeah.
As you said, it just took eight straight games to win the Stanley Cup, and that's why they would throw the octopus out when they would win. It's like, okay, we're 8 games away, or we're 7 or whatever. So that was interesting. But any other ones that you had?
I guess I can just throw one more out there. I'm not even sure if this really qualifies as superstition or just a weird tradition he had, but going to the NHL because they have, like we said, the best traditions is Patrick Roy was one of the best goalies that really hockey's ever had. And I guess what he would do is, there's always a saying that the goalposts are your friends, right? Because, you can use them to try to deflect some of the incoming pucks and kind of use it to your advantage. So Patrick Roy, I guess, would take that to another level and during games would literally have full-blown conversations with the goalpost. Like he would talk to it, pretend it said something back to him, and have like a full-blown conversation with him during the game. And when asked why he did that, he just said, because they're my friends. So, I thought that was kind of a wacky tradition he had. Something I guess that I would be really interested to know when he first did that, why he did that, what it was that led to him doing that, but just kind of something interesting he did.
Yeah, and tying right along with Patrick Roy also, they said that he would always skate to his net backwards. until the last moment he would turn around and look at it front-wise. He said it always made the goal seem smaller to him when he did that. But invariably, if you ever watch him go out, he would always skate backwards. All the way to his net, and then right at the very last second would turn around and stare at the net. And again, maybe that developed where the superstitious relationship was with the goalposts and being his friends and things like that. Pay respect to him.
Yeah.
Others that were in there, right along the lines of Serena Williams, Bjorn Borg always started growing a beard for Wimbledon and wouldn't shave during the tournament, and also always wore the same shirt. If you remember, he always had that striped Fila shirt that he wore every year.
Yeah.
You won't hardly ever find a picture with him without that shirt on. There were others. Let's see. There was Karl Malone. They said would just have conversations with the basketball when he was shooting free throws. At the point they finally were getting close to starting to put a shot clock on him. So just trying to see if there were any other. And again, every list I found had different ones, and you literally could go through.
Yeah.
We thought we'd bring you a few today that as we get into the playoffs of the NHL and the NBA playoffs and what players were thinking or doing. So when you see a player acting kind of quirky on the sidelines or taking a little bit of time to do their ritual, there's probably a method to their madness. And if it makes them feel better about how they're going to perform, then who are we to argue with them?
Yep.
All right.
Hey,
with that being
for the
said,
most part,
go ahead.
Their games. I said for the most part, their games of confidence, right? I mean, whatever you do, if it gives you confidence, maybe it does help you play better. Not because it's a superstitious thing, but just because it gives you more. You become more comfortable. Whenever you do this superstition, gives you confidence or whatever. So hey, guess you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, some of them are legit. Like I see the theory of like leaving a pitcher alone when he's throwing a no hitter. Just give him his space, let him do his work. I kind of get that one. Drinking urine before a game, dipping your hands in pee, peeing on yourself before, those might be a little out there.
That might be a little too far.
Taking a dive into the Zambezi River was a bad move all around. There was probably nothing good going to come of that, unless maybe the player that they lost was the one player who was jinxed. So, and maybe they rid of themselves of the jinx that they were having from earlier, and who knows? We didn't explore that deeply into that. But that'll do it for today. We'll be back the rest of the week. We got some other things to cover leading up to Thursday's game, opening up the NBA championships. We'll have a review of that on Friday. We want to talk a little bit about the Supermax contractings that's going on now that NBA All-Star teams and All-NBA teams have been determined and who is eligible. What exactly signifies a Supermax contract? We also, this time, over the next day or two, we'll get a listing of all the players who initially declared for the NBA draft, college players, basketball players who wanted to go out and test the market, see what – and many of them go to these auditions and camps to get feedback. What they need to work on and things from an NBA perspective of what if you want to play in the NBA, you've got to get better here. And a lot of them, I think, by the 29th, which is tomorrow, they have to declare whether they're going to enter the NBA draft. I know a few have. Romeo Langford from Indiana has. Obviously the top players, all the lottery picks have. I believe Kyle Guy has all gone and said they're definitely going. But there's a handful of players from multiple universities that are going to be welcome additions back to the college programs. And we'll talk a little bit about that once we get that list of players and how it strengthens up and starts to shape up the college basketball season next season. Anything else you got?
No, I think they pretty much covered everything. I don't think I really have anything else to add.
We turned that into an hour and a half journey through the lore of superstition in professional sports, and again, amazing that how many of our top level athletes engage in some form of superstition. And I'm sure we just nicked the top of the iceberg today. But again, in closing, I want to thank once again our sponsors, MyBookieAG. Again, go to thegrillingtruth.com, click on the link and banner up top, type in TGTN, And MyBookie AG will match you $300 on the first $300 you invest, giving you a $600 pool of money to play with. Go to the Sheridan Report, which I believe is broadcast at 2 p.m. Eastern Time daily, where Bobby will give you all of his odds. He's fairly successful at this, does a good job, and he'll tell you who his top plays are and who his parlays are, his trifectas, whatever. Again, without looking at the betting jargon and terminology, Bobby knows his stuff and knows what's going on. So if you want to get involved in that, that's the place to go, and it's a 2-for-1 on the Grueling Truth. You get, not only do you get the opportunity to double your investment into the wagers, you also get top-notch advice at no cost to you on the free picks and free plays that he gives us on a daily basis. So with that, we'll sign off. Cole, thank you for joining me. We'll be back on tomorrow with some topic. We'll wait and see what plays out, which direction we want to go, but we'll be back on for another exciting episode of Survive and Advance. And thank you, everybody, for listening today. With that being said, say goodbye, Cole.
Yep. Looking forward to a good show tomorrow. A lot of interesting superstitions. We could have gone on for hours, but
I know.
it was fun.
Could have, yeah. And the one thing I need to close with is you can find Survive and Advance and any Grueling Truth product on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, YouTube, virtually any place that you can find a sports podcast, you will be able to find the Grueling Truth. You can get us on Twitter. You can get us on Facebook. There virtually no longer is any place you can't go and pick up either one of our written articles or one of our audio playbacks of a podcast being done by one of our many contributors. And we have contributors that are experts in every different sport pretty much. We cover pretty much everything now. So if it can't be listened to and you want the Grueling Truth, you need to come to the Grueling Truth, which is where you'll get the Grueling Truth. And with that, we'll talk to everybody again tomorrow. Goodbye, Cole.
See ya.